Hi everyone, and today in this video we are going to compare the NSDL IPO with the CDSL which is already listed in the market, and watch the video till the end because there are some interesting data points which are going to help you to differentiate which company is better. So just a quick disclaimer that this is not a buy or sell recommendation. So first, let's start with understanding that what NSDL does, what is the market share they have in different type of segments, and along with the geographic presence. So NSDL is National Security Depository Limited, and they offer secure and efficient depository services to investors, issuers and intermediaries. And as of FY25, they have 99.99% of foreign portfolio investor assets. They also have 86.8% share of total demat value, and along with that, they also have presence across almost 99.34% of India's PIN code, and they are also present in 194 countries. So after reading this point, we can say that along with domestic presence, they also have a very good and strong international presence. And after that, they have almost 34% share in the depository participants, and along with that, they have 76.6% share in DP centers. So by reading this data point, we already got to know that they have a good presence and a market share in this industry. And now let's come to the next segment where we will do the industry overview. So let's take a look at the addressable market in the payment bank industry. So here we can see that there are 4 types of revenue segments in the payment banks. The first one is the CASA, which is the current and savings account. The second one is the payment related services. The third one is the remittance, and the last one is the cash management services part. And if we compare all the segments, so the CASA and the payment related services, it consists the major part of the payment bank addressable market. And in FY25 for CASA, it is expected that the revenue is something around 1160 to 70 billion, and in FY27 it is expected to grow to around 1300 billion INR. And second, if we take a look at the payment related services segment, so it is expected to be something around 230 to 250 billion INR, and in FY27 it is expected to be something around 300 to 320 billion INR. So here we can see the number of demat accounts since FY20. So in FY20 the number was around 4 crores, and in FY25 it went up to 19.2 crores. So that is a beautiful CAGR growth of 36.4% from FY20 till FY25, and in FY27 that number is expected to be something around 22.5 to 24 crores, which is a CAGR growth of 11.7% in next 2 years. So after reading this data point, we can say that after COVID, we can see a huge demand and huge opening of the demat accounts in India. And one of the main reason is that many people are getting interested to invest in the stock markets. And now let's come to the next part where we will see the revenue segments in NSDL. So here we can see that there are 3 types of revenue segments in NSDL. So the first one is the NSDL payment banks. The second one is the depository services, and the last one is the NSDL database management. So first, if you take a look at the NSDL payment bank segment, so in FY23 the percentage of revenue consisted of 53%. In FY24 that increased to 56.7% with a number of 719 crores of revenue, and in FY25 that percentage came down to 50.7% with a revenue of almost 720 crores. But do you know one thing which is a red flag in this revenue segment? That currently in FY25 it consists of almost 51% of their revenue segment, but in FY25 they have earned nothing from the payment bank segment. Second, if we take a look at the depository services revenue segment, so in FY23 it was 40% of the revenue. Then in FY24 it came down to 37.3% with a revenue of 473 crores. And in FY25 that number came up to 43.6% with a revenue of 618 crores. And lastly, if we take a look at the database management revenue segment, so that has been almost the same since FY23. And now let's take a look at the number of users they currently have. So there are 2 types of users they currently have. The first one is the listed issuers, and the second one is the unlisted issuers. And if you take a look at the listed issuers, so in FY24 that number was around 5,900 users, and in FY25 it came up to almost 6,300. And if you take a look at the unlisted issuer part, so in FY24 the number was 40,000, and in FY25 that number drastically increased to 73,000. So we can definitely see a huge jump in the users in the unlisted issuers. And one of the main reason of this high jump is also because there are more margin in this segment. Now let's come to the next segment where we will do the financial analysis and the peer comparison with CDSL. So first, let's take a look at the income statement of NSDL. So in FY24, they had a revenue of 1268 crores. So that is a 24% YOY growth. And in FY25, that number came up to 1420 crores with a YOY jump of 12%. If we take a look at their EBITDA and EBITDA margins, so in FY24, they gave EBITDA of 382 crores with an EBITDA margin of 30.2%, and in FY25 that went up to 491 crores of EBITDA with a margin of 34.5%. So that is definitely a good jump in their EBITDA margins. And next, if you take a look at their PAT and PAT margins, so in FY24 they gave a PAT of 275 crores with a PAT margin of 21.7%, and in FY25 that number came up to 343 crores with a PAT margin of 24.2%. And lastly, if you take a look at their EPS, so in FY24 they gave an EPS of almost 14, and in FY25 that went up to 17.2. So financially we can definitely say the company is looking good and it is growing nicely. And now let's do a peer comparison with CDSL. So first, let's take a look at their market cap. So NSDL market cap is around 16,000 crores and CDSL market cap is 35,000 crores. Next, if you compare the EBITDA margins of both the companies, so NSDL has 34.5% of EBITDA margins, whereas if we take a look at CDSL, so that is 57.5%. Next, if we take a look at the net profit margin, so NSDL has 24.2, whereas for CDSL that is double, which is 48.7%. So again, CDSL is a winner over here. And now if you compare the PE valuation of both the companies, so NSDL has 46.6 of PE, whereas for CDSL their PE is 66.6. So after looking their EBITDA and PAT margins, we can say that their higher valuation makes sense. And lastly, if you take a look at the ROE of NSDL and CDSL, so NSDL has 17.1% and for CDSL that is almost 30%. So again, there is a very huge difference in the financial ratios. But now here comes one of the very interesting data point of NSDL. So NSDL has 4 crore of active client accounts, whereas for CDSL that number is 15.3 crores. But if we take a look at the total demat value, so NSDL has 464 crores, whereas for CDSL that is only 70.5 crores. So even though NSDL has a less active client accounts, but still their total demat value is way higher than CDSL. And even if we take a look at the depository participant service centers, so NSDL has something around 65,000, whereas for CDSL that is almost coming to 18,900. So again, there is a very huge difference in this segment. And lastly, if we take a look at the market share in total active instruments, so NSDL has a market share of 65.2%, whereas for CDSL that number is 34.7%. So to summarize this table, if we take a look at the valuation ratio wise, so the CDSL is a clear winner. But if we look at the other parameters, so NSDL is a winner over there. And now let's come to the next segment where we will see the management guidance for the coming future. So the first point NSDL has mentioned is that they want to upgrade their IT infrastructure, and along with that they also want to upgrade their operational efficiency. The second point is that they have nicely diversified their offerings and they are also focusing to enhance their database management business. And lastly, they have increased their market share in the payment bank business. So after reading all the good data points of NSDL, let's take a look at some of the risk in this company and in this industry. So the first major risk in NSDL is that in FY23, 24 and 25, the revenue from transaction consisted almost 25% in FY23, and in FY25 that number went up to almost 30%. The second risk in the company and in this industry is the competitor and the regulatory risk. And the last and one of the big risk in this company, which is one of the red flag, is that the payment bank business, it contributes 51% to the revenue, but they have zero PAT in FY25. And now let's come to the last segment where we will do the technical analysis. So currently, as NSDL is not listed, we will do technical analysis of CDSL. So in September 2023, the stock was trading something around 600 rupees, and in FY25 January, that stock price went up to almost 2000 rupees and made an all-time high. And after making an all-time high at 2000 rupees, it again came down to 1000 rupees, and now currently it is trading at a price of 1500 rupees. And now from almost 1 year it has been consolidating in the same range. So one of the reason they're consolidating is also because they have been giving weak results in the last 2 quarters. So what do you guys think about NSDL and CDSL? Write down in the comment section. And what do you think, which company will do better in the coming future? So thank you for watching this video. I hope this analysis of NSDL and CDSL was helpful, and write down your opinions in the comment section, and see you in the next video.